step forward, please.
Dennis Awad is suing his ex-wife, Sandra Awad, for her share of their daughter's college tuition.
Mr. Awad, you and the defendants have children and are divorced. It is your claim that your former wife owes you some money for tuition expenses for one of your children for school. You claim that there was an agreement with her that she would pay half of those expenses. When were you divorced?
2008.
It's July 2007, Your Honor. Can I see a copy of the decree, please? You have a copy of the decree, Mr. Awad?
No, not with me.
Mr. Awad, were you represented by counsel?
Yes.
Did you have counsel? Yes, I did, Your Honor. Am I correct that the judgment of divorce does not mention anything with regard to college payments?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, sir, I'm ready to listen to you.
Okay, basically, we had an agreement, Sandra and I, to be able to pay for our adult children. We have 4 children, 3 of them were going to college, and that we would pay for their tuition and expenses, housing, everything to support them.
What do you mean that they're adult children?
They were children over 18.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were, what I would consider adult children.
No, they're not adult children, sir. Not for the purpose of college tuition. And that should have been in your decree.
Well, I mean, they're older children. I mean, I don't know.
The child for whom you are seeking reimbursement is how old?
Today, she's 22.
And for what year are you requesting reimbursement of her tuition? Your Honor?
For this last year.
What?
For this last year.
What is she still doing in school at age 23?
She is trying to get her master's degree in 5 years, and she just actually been able to achieve that this last month. So she's almost finished with her degree.
Tell me when you made this arrangement with your former wife about paying tuition.
This arrangement was made over a period of time.
No, listen, Mr. Awad. When did you make this arrangement with your wife? This contract, not arrangement, contract with your wife to pay for half of your children's tuition.
It was made when she started to go to school, which would have been, I guess, probably 2006. But we continued it each time. We would have to renew the tuition. We would have to go ahead and get sometimes loans to be able to provide for her schooling.
That's voluntary payment, sir. Let me read to you what your decree says. This judgment is intended to be final, complete, and exclusive of the intent of the parties over the matter it covers. It supersedes any previous, contemporaneous, oral or written judgment between the parties with respect to these matters. So anything that happened prior to the date that this was filed, which is July 26, 2007, is superseded by this. Now, this could have contemplated what you said, that the parties agree, despite the fact that you may have a child who's 35 years old and still wants to go to school. You think if your daughter was 35 and still wanted to go to school to get a PhD, that your former wife would be responsible for half?
Not necessarily, but in this circumstance, Your Honor, she did agree after the divorce to continue to pay for half of the expenses of her child.
Tell me when, sir, other than just paying, tell me when she said, I will continue to pay half of her expenses for as long as she goes to school.
I can't give you an exact date, Your Honor, because it happened multiple times over many years.
I can't help you, sir. I can't help you, sir. There are certain things as being parental and saying, listen, I'm sharing these expenses by sending you a check. That doesn't create a contract. That contemplates a voluntary act on her part. Just as if you say, I'm not paying for this tuition anymore. She can't take you to court and say, listen, he paid for it up until 2008, and then he just stopped. And now she's 23 years old, and she has a year left to go to school. And I shouldn't be responsible for paying all of that. Well, actually, nobody's responsible for paying for all of that.
Well, Your Honor, when we started out, at the time our children were in school, certainly we didn't know we were going to be getting divorced. And if all of a sudden, a child is in school and they need support because they are not independent at that point in time, it is the responsibility of a mother and a father, if they can, to try to assist their children.
Absolutely correct. Just a second, Mr. Awad. You are absolutely correct, in my judgment, that after a child reaches the age of majority, which is 21 years old, in most places, especially for the purposes of matrimonial actions and college, that it would be lovely if you have a talented child who wants to go pursue higher education, and if you can afford it, to say, I'm the mother, I'm the father, we're both going to contribute to that child's education. I agree with you. It's a moral responsibility if you can afford it.
Right.
It's not a legal responsibility. unless there is a contract that makes it a legal responsibility. Unless she says to you, if you pay the tuition for a daughter, I will reimburse you half of that. And that didn't happen in this case. I don't believe that that's what happened. That's not even what you say happened.
Your Honor, I'm not an attorney, but I do know that over a long period of time, that what we had is multiple emails, many times when both Sandra and I would agreeing to pay 50-50 share for not only their tuition, but for their expenses, their housing, all different types of things. And the children knew this and they depended upon that. And they knew that their parents were trying to take care of them. And it would only
That's a
seem...
moral responsibility, sir. And it's a responsibility, if you can, continue to do that for an adult child who's over 21. In this case, your daughter's 23. Then you're absolutely right. If you can do it, fine. But it's not a matter that can be resolved in a court. You don't have a contract with her. If your daughter wants to continue to attend school and you can afford it, and your former wife feels as if she can't afford to pay for her continued education anymore, let your daughter take out loans and pay them back when she graduates, like a lot of other people do.
Yes, I understand that, Your Honor, but here's a situation where I paid my ex-wife over $3 million, so she has plenty of money to be able to support and take care of her children, and doesn't seem right.
That's not true, sir. How many children do you have?
4.
What kind of work did your wife do when you were living together and raising 4 children?
She was a housekeeper
She was a housekeeper for
for the children.
I was a housewife.
Just a second. For the children? She didn't work outside the home.
That's correct.
And you had a business.
Yes.
And enough of a business so that she was able to, when you divorced, have a piece of money. How long was she home with the children, raising your 4 children?
Well, her, along
No,
with the
just
maid
a-
that she had, was for quite a while, Your
Just
Honor.
a second. A maid that you had.
Well,
A maid that you had.
That we mutually had.
That's better.
Okay, I understand that.
That's better.
Okay, I don't disagree with that.
That's better. Let's say your wife got $3 million in the divorce decree. Did she get that in a lump sum?
Yes.
And you took that as a deduction on your tax returns as the following year?
I don't think so.
Really? Didn't have any tax benefit, and she got $3 million clean without paying any taxes on it?
I don't know exactly how the tax consequences were, but
Let's say that's what she has. And all the time she was at home, she was honing no skills and not involved in a business. Let's say she invests that money and she's fortunate enough to invest that $3 million at 4% interest, right?
right, she'd make $120,000 a year.
Absolutely right. How much did you file taxes for that you earned last year? You filed taxes last year. You have a business?
Yes, I do.
Are you remarried?
No.
You filed tax returns in April?
Yes.
How much did you earn?
About $100,000.
What does that mean about 100? I know exactly up to the quarter. Ask CBS how much I earn. To the quarter, I know. What do you mean you earn about $100,000?
Your Honor, I don't know exactly how much it is.
You don't have the case, Mr. Rayward. You want to continue to pay for your 23-year-old daughter's education? She wants to go for a master's. She wants to go for a doctorate. And if you can afford to pay it, fine. And if you can't, tell her, sweetheart, you have to take out loans. You're a big girl now. You're over 21. I can't do it myself. And your mother, at her stage and age in life, cannot afford to dip into her principal that she's going to have to live off for the rest of her life. How old are you?
56.
Hard to retrain, especially in today's economy. Do we understand each other, sir?
I understand.
Perfect. Goodbye.
Excuse me, step out.
Her daughter's graduated already. I paid her half of her tuition.
She did pay for some of the tuition for our daughter. That's true.
He makes it sound like I've never given anything
But at this point in time, she decided to go ahead and move to Big Bear,
towards our kids. I have.
to her family's extra home that they had gotten from the California Lotto.
He's just a bitter bully. That's all I can say.
So I do think that there's plenty of money there. She's planning to live there for free.
It's just another way of him trying to get back at me leaving him.
And so she'll have plenty of money, and she could support her children if she wanted to.
I'm sorry for it.
Well, I hope that, that she'll be thinking twice about, her support for her children,
I hope he leaves me alone and marries his future bride.
because they really do need her support, not only financially, but in other ways as well.
Just leaves me alone. I want to have a happy life, a peaceful life without him in my life.